From Seco Future Farm, today's innovations, tomorrow's solutions.
Welcome back to another week of Future Farm. I'm your guest host, Trent Friesen, and I'm here with the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Todd Claussen.
Hey.
Todd, thanks for being here.
You bet, my pleasure.
Well, Todd, we talk a lot about fungicides on corn. After all, corn is king.
Yep.
But what about fungicides on soybeans? We got a beautiful field of soybeans here. So what can we do on soybeans?
Yeah, I mean, at heart, we're all corn farmers in the Midwest, but we happen to have soybeans too. And if you can look behind us, we have a field of soybeans that's just an ocean of soybeans today. It makes the hair on my arm stand up. They look so good. But we sometimes and oftentimes overlook the management on soybeans because we're so focused on corn.
Right. Yeah, corn, we talk a lot about different diseases on corn with tar spot or southern rust and just a lot of different diseases on corn. What about, again, what diseases are we protecting against on soybeans?
Yeah, so this might be a difficult concept, but when we think about the big diseases in soybeans, the big four, Phytophthora, Rhizoctonia, Pythium, and Fusarium. Well, they're all root rots or seedling diseases, so they happen way back, in the first 25 to 35 days of the crop's life. And so when we use when you use fungicides on soybeans today, we're really only looking at probably frog eye, maybe brown spot, or cercospora. Big deal, right? They're not real yield limiting. So when we think about fungicides on soybeans, we go down that plant health road,
okay.
Right? So we need the plant health and all the compounds that we're using, the fungicide components that we use, most of them are dual or triple components. Okay. And the real big one for plant health is the strobilurine chemistry. Okay. The strobilurins, they lower the respiration rate. Now, I don't want to give you a chemistry lesson, but respiration is a dark reaction of photosynthesis. Okay. So all day long, this crop is building and accumulating sugar. During the dark reaction, when the sun goes down, it reaches back and uses that sugar to maintain and sustain the plant, but also helps build and progress the plant towards its goal, which is reproduction. Okay? So we're really looking at plant health.
Okay. Well, again, on corn, we talk a lot about the timing for plant health and the fungicide applications right there at VT. That's the most critical time. Yeah. What about on soybeans? What stage are we looking at trying to hit on soybeans? The fungicide ladder for focus and for value starts with timing. Okay. Timing, then good application, and then maybe even tertiary would be the product that you use. Okay. But timing on soybeans is equally important. So we want to look at the R3 stage. Okay. This particular farm was planted really early. It was planted on April the 11th. Okay, it's a 2.9 bean under irrigation. It's just now moving from R2 to R3. R3 is key. Okay, R3 is key, and it's kind of difficult to discuss the differences between the two, but if I may. Can you show me what's the difference between R2, R3 was going to be?
So R1 would be a flower somewhere on the plant. Now R2 is a flower somewhere in the uppermost 4 nodes. And if we find the upper 4most nodes, that'll be the top trifoliate. So there's a node below it, that's 1. That's node number 2. That's node number 3, and that's 4. So that's the uppermost 4 nodes, and there is no pod anywhere. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 flowers. That's R2. Now to move to R3, I don't know who made this description, but R3 is a pod, 3/16 of an inch, somewhere in the top 4 nodes. And these aren't very far from one another. Again, we have the open trifoliate, which will be the uppermost trifoliate on the plant, so we start counting nodes below. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. Now if you look at the upper 4most nodes, we have a pod at least 3/16 of an inch. That will be true R3. Baby, that is it. That's go time.
Okay.
It'll be in the stage 10, 11 more days.
Okay.
So that timing is perfect. Now there can be a slippery slope on that, simply from the standpoint of if you wait too long. So now you get farther out in the maturity of this soybean,
right,
and you push the maturity farther out, you might have 10, 11% seed or grain on these plants, and your stem might still be green, have a hard time kicking it through the combine. So it's a slippery slope. But what R3 will affect is we can't affect the number of plants per acre, right, but we can still affect the number of pods, the number of nodes per plant, okay, the number of pods per node, and we can certainly affect the seed size.
Okay. Okay, so back to different disease that we talked about and different timing. We talked about R3 right now is important with the fungicide application. I think one of the diseases we didn't talk about was white mold. You know, I read somewhere that I think 28 out of the top soybean producing states are affected by white mold. So when do we want to hit with white mold?
Yeah, sclerotinia white mold is certainly a major concern. And for fungicide, what we just talked about, R3 is key. But if we want to have an address and direct it towards white mold, we have to back that up to R1.
Okay.
And we do it R1 simply because the receptacle of the white mold spores is the first flower.
Okay.
Streamline Ag's Zolera FX has a label for white mold, but remember, it's got to be at R1.
Okay.
And here's the caveat. If we apply at R1 and we don't have a white mold concern, R1 advantage versus R3 advantage in fungicide, that R1 advantage is only about half of what R3 is.
Okay.
So there's a major difference. But if you're going after white mold, that R1 label with a product like Zolera FX that has a control label will give you some benefit.
Okay, so you, again, want to aim for R3 normally, but if you have concerns or there's going to be an issue of white mold, we want to go at R1.
Perfect.
Okay, so putting a fungicide, we're going to increase our yield potential. Is that correct? So what is a pod worth?
Yeah, so if we're going to, with the plant health directive, we can affect it at least in two ways, the components of soybeans. We can affect the number of pods per node, and then we can affect the total seed size. Okay. Just think about a pod. So if we put one more pod on, and my one-room schoolhouse math will tell me there's 2 beans in a pod.
Okay.
On 125,000 plants per acre, that's 250,000 beans. 180,000 beans make a bushel. So a pod can be worth at least 1.5 bushels per acre.
Okay.
So there's real value of putting on another pod. And if we put on another node, could be worth 3 to 4 bushel.
Okay. So if we're increasing pods and increasing nodes and increasing that yield potential of the soybeans, is there anything else we need to do to increase the offensive capability of the soybean plant?
If we're going to put on another node, if we're going to put on more pods, you've got more seed that need to be maintained. Okay. So we can't just build the factory and then walk away from it. We have to feed it.
Okay.
And we're using a lot of nutritional packages at R3 with our fungicide and soybeans because we're going to increase the capability. We have to feed that additional foundation that's underneath of it. So we use a lot of nutritional packages out here. The one that we really like to use is NKBS. Okay. So you have nitrogen and sulfur for the chlorophyll churn and burn, so we continue to stay green and photosynthesize. Okay. We have potassium out there, which is so important to soybeans. Soybeans need 1.5 pounds of potassium per bushel of production. And then the boron's so important on soybeans because boron helps fruit set, helps flower set, helps pod set, helps node set, and then helps increase our total seed size to reach and get that plant to the final production of the foundation that we just increased.
Okay. Good to know. So again, if we want to make sure that we feed the plant as we're helping increase our yield potential, got to make sure to feed that plant so it has enough to actually reach its full potential, it sounds like. Okay, good to know. Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for joining us on another Future Farm.